Three alien princesses, one room, endless mysteries. The invitations echo. Marcus Chen stood at the crystalline threshold, his breath catching as the palace of Valoria materialized before him. The floating structure defied every law of physics he understood, suspended in the violet twilight like a prayer made solid. He'd been selected for this cultural exchange from thousands of applicants. Yet now, facing the reality of it, his confidence wavered. "Ambassador Chen?" a melodic voice called from within. He stepped forward, passing through a membrane that felt like warm rain. The observatory opened before him, a circular room where walls dissolved into star-filled sky. Three figures stood at its center, their forms backlit by distant nebulae. The tallest stepped forward first. "I am Naya," she said, her voice carrying the weight of ceremony. Her silver skin caught the ambient light, while auburn hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that seemed to move with their own rhythm. Patterns like constellations traced across her collarbone, pulsing with a soft amber glow. "Welcome to our home." Before Marcus could respond, another figure bounded forward with barely contained energy. "Finally! We've been waiting hours!" Ember's grin was infectious, her matching silver skin flushed with rose-gold undertones. The markings along her neck and wrists flickered with rapid scarlet pulses. "Can you really name all 88 Earth constellations from memory? Naya said you could, but I don't believe it." "Ember, please," Naya sighed, though affection colored her tone. The third daughter remained by the window, observing. Celestria was smaller than her companions, her demeanor tranquil where theirs was animated. Her bioluminescent patterns were the softest, gentle blues and purples that ebbed and flowed like breathing. When their eyes met, Marcus felt she was reading languages written in his soul. "Forgive the chaos," Naya said, guiding Marcus to cushioned seats arranged in a circle. A low table held crystal decanters filled with luminous liquid. Ember poured generous measures into 4 glasses. "Starfruit wine," she explained. "It won't harm you. We checked with your physicians first." Marcus accepted the glass, its contents warm and smelling of honey and lightning. The first sip sent pleasant electricity across his tongue. "This is incredible." "So is this situation, yes?" Celestria spoke for the first time, her voice like distant wind chimes. "A human here. The council debated for months." "But we insisted," Ember added quickly, settling onto her cushion with unconscious grace. "We wanted to meet you, Marcus, not the ambassador, you." Naya shot her a warning glance, but nodded. "We requested this specifically. There are questions we have about your world, your people." "About connection," Celestria whispered, and her markings flared briefly bright. Marcus looked between them, sensing currents far deeper than diplomatic exchange. "I'm honored, though I admit I don't fully understand why I'm here." "Neither do we entirely," Naya admitted with a small smile. "But shall we start with something simple? Ember's constellation challenge seems as good a beginning as any." Ember leaned forward eagerly, her markings sparking with delight. "Okay, human, impress us."
Games of Light and Shadow. The Constellation Challenge evolved into something far more intimate than Marcus anticipated. Ember didn't simply ask him to recite names, she projected holographic star fields across the observatory ceiling, asking him to find patterns, to explain the stories humans told themselves about distant lights. "Orion," Marcus said, tracing the hunter's form with his finger. "We see a warrior there. What do your people see?" Ember's eyes widened, her crimson markings pulsing faster. "We see a doorway. A passage between what is and what could be." She moved closer, her shoulder nearly touching his, as she pointed, "Show me another." As Marcus spoke of Cassiopeia and Andromeda, of love and sacrifice written in stars, he noticed Naya watching with an expression that seemed almost wistful. The patterns along her throat glowed warmer, shifting from amber to something closer to gold. "Your turn," Celestria said softly, and the holographic stars rearranged themselves into completely alien configurations. "We have stories too." She showed him the weeping tree, a constellation that marked the moment her people first understood sorrow. Then, the joining hands, which celebrated the discovery of empathy. As she spoke, her voice gained strength, and Marcus realized she wasn't just reciting mythology, she was sharing pieces of herself. "Each story is a memory," Naya explained, rising to stand beside the projection. "Our markings record them. Watch." She closed her eyes, and the patterns on her skin began to shift, forming images that matched the stars above. "This is how we remember, how we carry our history." Marcus stood transfixed. "That's beautiful. We have nothing like that." "You have other gifts," Ember said, suddenly serious. Her usual playfulness had softened into something more vulnerable. "You feel so much, so intensely. We can sense it, the way your emotions move through you like storms." Her hand hovered near his, not quite touching. "It's intoxicating." The admission hung in the air between them. Naya's markings flickered uncertainly, while Celestria's glowed brighter, as if in response to unspoken truth. "There's another game," Naya said, her voice slightly unsteady. "A dance. It requires trust." She gestured, and soft music filled the observatory, wordless but haunting. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Each of us will lead you through a movement," Naya continued. "You must mirror us exactly, but also feel what we feel. It's how we communicate deeper truths." Ember stood first, extending both hands toward Marcus. "I'll start. Don't think, just move with me." Her dance was fire and motion, quick turns and sudden stillness. Marcus struggled at first, self-conscious, but Ember's infectious energy pulled him along. When their palms pressed together, he felt a shock of warmth, and her markings blazed brilliant red. "You're scared," she whispered, still moving, "of getting this wrong, of disappointing us." "Yes," he admitted. "Don't be," she spun him gently. "We're scared too." When Naya took over, the dance transformed into something more controlled, elegant. Each gesture carried meaning, a tilt of the head for question, a hand to heart for sincerity. As they moved together, Marcus understood this was her language of leadership, of bearing responsibility. "I'm always performing," Naya confessed as they swayed. "Always the eldest, the example. But right now, with you," her markings softened to gentle gold, "I can just be Naya." Her vulnerability struck him deeply. He squeezed her hand gently, and she smiled, genuine and unguarded. Finally, Celestria approached. Her dance was barely movement at all, just subtle shifts in weight, small gestures that spoke volumes. She took his hand and placed it over her heart, where her markings pulsed in steady rhythm. "This is truth," she said simply. "No performance, no games, just what is." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, overwhelmed by the intimacy of it. "I don't know if I'm enough for whatever this is." Celestria's markings flared bright blue. "You're exactly enough. That's why you're here." The dance ended, and they stood together in the star-filled room, breathing synchronized, barriers dissolved. "Now," Naya said softly, "we share our fears. Only then can we move forward."
The Midnight Garden. The daughters led Marcus through corridors that seemed to shift and breathe, until they emerged into a garden unlike anything he'd imagined. Bioluminescent flowers carpeted the ground in waves of color, sapphire,
emerald, violet, each bloom responding to presence with gentle pulses of light. "This is the heart garden," Celestria explained, her voice reverent, "where truth grows." Above them, Valoria's twin moons cast silver light through crystalline leaves that chimed softly in the breeze. The air smelled of jasmine and ozone, sweet and electric at once. Ember ran ahead, her bare feet leaving glowing footprints in the moss. "Come on, the flowers here are special. They react to emotion." She knelt beside a cluster of crimson blooms, and as her fingers brushed their petals, they brightened, reflecting her joy. Marcus followed, kneeling beside her. When he touched a flower, it flickered uncertainly, shifting between colors. "What does that mean?" "Confusion," Ember said with a knowing smile. "Possibility. That you're standing at a crossroads." She took his hand, and her skin was surprisingly warm, softer than he'd expected. "Let me show you something." She guided his hand to a different patch, deep purple blossoms that reminded him of Earth's irises. Together, they touched the petals, and the flowers erupted in brilliant magenta light. "That's connection," Ember breathed, her markings now pulsing in rhythm with the flowers. Two energies becoming something new. She leaned closer, her auburn hair falling forward. "Do you feel it? The pull?" Marcus's heart raced. "I do. I've dreamed of adventure my whole life, of worlds beyond these walls, but now," she searched his face, "now I wonder if the greatest adventure might be understanding someone completely different from me." Before he could respond, Naya's voice called from deeper in the garden. "Marcus, come see!" He found her beside a fountain where water flowed upward, defying gravity, cascading back down in spirals. She sat on the fountain's edge, her reflection fragmenting in the impossible water. "I come here when leadership feels too heavy," she admitted as he approached. Without her formal bearing, she seemed younger, more fragile. "This water flows wrong, breaks every rule, and yet it's beautiful. It reminds me that wrong and right aren't always what they seem." Marcus sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "What's wrong about tonight?" Naya's laugh was soft, almost sad. "Everything. By our customs, we shouldn't be this informal with an outsider. I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling." She turned to him, and in the fountain's light, her silver skin seemed to glow from within. "My mother led our people for 3 centuries. She never wavered, never doubted. And here I am, after barely 2 decades in her role, ready to abandon protocol because, she trailed off. "Because?" Marcus prompted gently. "Because you make me remember what it's like to want something just for myself. Not for my people, not for duty, just for me." She rested her head on his shoulder, and Marcus held his breath, afraid to break the moment. Her hair smelled like starlight. If starlight had a scent, he imagined this would be it. "I'm lonely," she whispered. "So lonely. And tonight, with you, I'm not." They sat in comfortable silence until Celestria appeared, moving through the garden like a dream. She carried a small lamp that cast dancing shadows, and in her other hand, she held Marcus's. "I need to show you something," she said, her urgency quiet but unmistakable. She led them, all 4 now together, to the garden's heart, where an ancient tree grew. Its bark was silver, its leaves like captured moonlight. At its base, inscriptions covered the trunk in flowing script. "This is the memory tree," Celestria explained. "Every significant connection our people have made is recorded here. Friendships, loves, bonds that changed us." She traced the symbols with reverent fingers. "But look, the last entry is from 70 years ago." Marcus leaned closer, understanding dawning. "Your people have stopped connecting." "We're fading," Naya said quietly, "becoming cold. We live so long that we've forgotten how to risk our hearts. Every generation, fewer bonds form, fewer markings light up with genuine feeling." Ember's voice was small, vulnerable.
We're the youngest of our kind. We've never experienced what these inscriptions describe, that overwhelming connection that rewrites you. Until tonight, Celestria added, looking directly at Marcus. Your emotions are so vivid, so present. Being near you is like remembering how to feel again. She took his other hand, and suddenly he stood at the center of the three daughters, each holding some part of him, their markings illuminating the darkness. We brought you here hoping you might teach us how to love without fear, how to open without breaking. But instead, Ember continued, her eyes bright with unshed tears, we're falling, and we don't know how to stop. Celestria pressed his palm against the memory tree's trunk. Will you let us try to truly connect with you? It requires vulnerability from all of us. It might hurt. It will definitely change us. Marcus looked at each of them. Naya's desperate hope, Ember's fierce longing, Celestria's quiet certainty. His own heart thundered, torn between caution and courage. I'm just one person. How can I be enough for three? Because love isn't division, it's multiplication. What you give to one doesn't diminish what you give to another, it teaches you how to give more. The flowers around them blazed with light, responding to the emotional crescendo, and in that moment, standing in the heart of an alien garden beneath twin moons, Marcus made his choice. Then yes, he breathed, teach me your ways, and I'll teach you mine. Let's discover this together.
Secrets beneath starlight. The moment Marcus spoke his acceptance, the memory tree responded. Its silver bark began to glow, patterns spreading like veins of light up through its branches. The daughters gasped in unison, their own markings flaring brilliantly, amber, crimson, and sapphire intertwining in the air between them. It's acknowledging us, Naya whispered, wonder coloring her voice. The tree hasn't responded to anyone in decades. Celestria's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. There's something you need to understand before we go further. Something we haven't told you. Her markings flickered with anxiety. The reason we're fading? It's not just emotional distance. Ember pulled away slightly, wrapping her arms around herself. Our people made a choice generations ago. We extended our lifespans, gained control over our emotions to prevent the pain of loss. But every gift has a price. We're dying, Naya said bluntly, her diplomatic mask cracking completely. Not individually, as a species. We can live for centuries, but we've lost the ability to create new life. The spark that generates children requires deep emotional bonding, and we've suppressed that capacity almost to extinction. Marcus felt the weight of their revelations settle over him. How many of your people are left? Fewer than 1,000, Celestria said softly, and only we three are young enough to possibly still carry that spark. But we've never felt it ignite. Not until tonight. She moved closer, placing his hand over her heart. Beneath his palm, he felt not just the pulse of her markings, but something deeper, a resonance that seemed to reach into his own chest. When you arrived, when we first saw you, something awakened. Here, she pressed his hand more firmly. The elders believe that your species, so emotional, so intense, might be the catalyst we need. Not to save us through breeding, she added quickly, seeing his expression, but to remember how to feel deeply enough that we can save ourselves. That's why the council finally agreed to contact Earth. Desperation. But they don't know we invited you here specifically. They don't know we're attempting this. Attempting what exactly? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. Ember stepped forward, her usual boldness tempered with vulnerability. A bonding ritual. It's ancient, rarely performed even in our people's prime. 3 become 4, hearts linking across the barriers of self. If it works, our emotional centers might reawaken fully. We could teach others, start a renewal.
And if it doesn't work? Then we've risked our hearts for nothing, Naya said simply. We'll have let ourselves feel everything, joy, desire, love, only to return to emptiness. It could break us completely. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Naya, carrying the weight of her people's survival with such grace. Ember, burning with life and desperate to live before her flame dimmed. Celestria, quiet and certain, offering truth like a gift. "Why me?" he asked. "Truly." Celestria smiled, sad and sweet. "Because when we reviewed the candidates, yours was the only file that made me cry. Your essay about losing your sister, about how grief taught you that love was worth the pain, I felt it here." She touched your chest. "For the first time in my life, I felt someone else's emotion as my own. You understand loss. You've already learned the lesson we need, that connection is worth the risk of devastation." Ember took both his hands, her markings dancing with scarlet urgency. "And because I saw your picture and felt my heart skip. Because Naya read your words and couldn't sleep for thinking about you. Because Celestria dreamed of you before we'd even sent the invitation." She laughed shakily. "We're already halfway bonded, Marcus. The ritual just makes it complete." "What does the ritual involve?" he asked carefully. "Honesty," Celestria said. "Complete vulnerability. We each share our deepest truth, the thing we've never told anyone. Then we offer our greatest fear. And finally," she hesitated. "We share essence," Naya finished. "It's intimate, but not sexual. We intertwine our markings with your energy, create a pattern that binds us. You'll carry marks of your own afterward, temporary, but visible, evidence of the bond." "The council will be furious," Ember admitted. "They wanted clinical observation, careful study, not this. But we're running out of time, and we couldn't bear to waste this chance on caution." Marcus felt the enormity of it. These three extraordinary beings choosing him, risking everything. His scientific training urged caution, but his heart, still tender from years of loneliness after his sister's death, recognized kindred spirits. "My deepest truth," he said slowly, "is that I've been half alive since Sarah died, going through the motions, achieving things, but never really present. Until tonight." He met each of their gazes. "You've made me feel real again." Naya's eyes glistened. "My truth, I'm terrified I'm not worthy of my mother's legacy, that I'll be the leader who lets our people fade into nothing." "My truth," Ember whispered, "is that I'm angry, furious that I might never know what it's like to create life, to watch something grow, to leave a mark beyond myself." Celestria spoke last, her voice steady, despite tears tracking down her silver cheeks. "My truth is that I've always known I was meant for this moment. I've seen it in dreams since childhood, and I'm afraid that even now, even with you here, it might not be enough." The garden around them pulsed with light, flowers responding to the emotional tempest. The memory trees' glow intensified, branches reaching towards them as if in benediction. "Our fears," Naya said, taking Marcus's right hand. Ember took his left, while Celestria stood before him, completing their circle. "I fear failure, that history will remember me as the one who couldn't save us. I fear emptiness, that I'll fade without ever truly burning bright. I fear this is goodbye, that we'll bond tonight and you'll leave tomorrow, and I'll spend centuries remembering this feeling, but never experiencing it again." Marcus's throat tightened. "I fear I'm not enough, that you need something I can't give, that I'll disappoint you all." "Then we're all terrified," Naya said with a watery laugh.
perfect foundation for trust. Celestria stepped closer until they stood in a tight circle, foreheads nearly touching. The final step, we offer essence. Marcus, place your hands on our hearts. Let yourself feel everything. Don't shield, don't protect, just open. He reached out, one hand to Naya's chest, one to Ember's. Celestria placed both her hands over his heart. The moment contact was made, energy surged through him, overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. Their markings began to move, flowing like liquid light from their skin onto his. He gasped as patterns traced across his chest, down his arms, warm and tingling. He felt Naya's loneliness, Ember's fierce hunger for life, Celestria's oceanic calm. And they felt him, his grief, his hope, his awakening love. The world dissolved into light and sensation, 4 hearts beating as one, barriers melting away. Time lost meaning. They might have stood there for moments or hours, locked in perfect understanding. When awareness returned, Marcus found himself kneeling on the ground, the 3 daughters surrounding him. His chest bore glowing marks that mirrored theirs, amber and crimson and blue intertwined in intricate patterns. It worked, Ember breathed, wonder in her voice. Her markings blazed brighter than ever before. Naya touched the patterns on Marcus's skin reverently. I can feel you. Not just near me, but in me. Part of me. Celestria smiled, radiant and peaceful. We're bonded. Truly bonded. But as Marcus looked up at the lightening sky, reality crashed back in. Dawn was coming, and with it, consequences neither of them had fully prepared for.
Dawn's promise. The first rays of morning light touched the memory tree, and its silver leaves chimed softly, as if singing. Marcus sat with his back against the ancient trunk, the 3 daughters arranged around him in comfortable intimacy. Naya leaned against his shoulder, Ember had her head in his lap, and Celestria sat facing them all, sketching the patterns now visible on Marcus's skin into a journal. The council will convene in 3 hours, Naya said quietly, her voice lacking its usual certainty. They'll expect my report on the cultural exchange. When they see the marks, she traced the glowing amber lines on Marcus's forearm, there will be consequences. Let them come, Ember said fiercely, though her hand clutched Marcus's tightly. We've done what they were too afraid to attempt. We've proven connection is still possible. It's not just possible, Celestria corrected gently, still sketching. It's essential. I can feel the difference already. My heart is fuller, warmer. The numbness is gone. She looked up, her eyes bright. The question is, what happens now? The weight of that question settled over them. Marcus had a return shuttle scheduled for the following day. His mission parameters were clear. Observe, learn, report, return. The diplomatic protocols that governed human-Valorian relations were explicit about boundaries, about not disrupting their society. But everything had already been disrupted. I could stay, Marcus offered, though even as he spoke, he recognized the complications. Request an extension. Claim the research requires more time. Naya shook her head sadly. That's a postponement, not a solution. Eventually you'd have to leave. Humans age so quickly. You'd have perhaps 60 years if you're fortunate. We'd barely be approaching middle age when you... She couldn't finish the sentence. So we have a limited time, Marcus said, forcing himself to face the truth. That doesn't make this less real. If anything, it makes every moment more precious. Ember sat up suddenly, her eyes blazing with inspiration. What if we didn't have to leave? Not permanently. What if we established a real exchange program?
Not just diplomatic missions, but genuine cultural integration. Humans could live here for extended periods. We could visit Earth. Not just you and us, but others. We could teach your people what we've learned about longevity. You could teach us how to feel again. The Council would never approve, Naya said automatically, then paused. But if we could show them what we've achieved, demonstrate that the bonding worked. Hope crept into her voice. They're desperate, Marcus. They might agree to almost anything if it offers hope for survival. Celestria closed her journal, her expression thoughtful. There's precedent. The archives mentioned a time when our people bonded with another species, the Kytherans, centuries ago. The relationships were temporary by necessity, but they enriched both cultures, until we sealed ourselves off, became too controlled to risk it anymore. We could be the beginning of something, Marcus said slowly. The vision taking shape. Not just saving your people, but creating something new. A bridge between worlds, between different ways of being. Naya stood and her posture shifted, the leader returning, but changed, strengthened by vulnerability rather than weakened by it. Then we present our case to the Council, together. We show them the marks, explain the bonding, and propose a formal alliance based on emotional and cultural exchange. They'll say we've been reckless, Ember warned, though her grinning was grinning. And we'll tell them the truth, Celestria added, standing to join Naya, that protocols were killing us, that we chose life over caution. Marcus rose as well, feeling the patterns on his skin pulse with warmth. He could sense the daughter's emotions now, could feel their determination mixing with anxiety, hope threading through fear. The bond went both ways. They felt his resolve matching theirs. What if it doesn't work? He asked. What if the Council refuses, orders me to leave immediately, forbids further contact? Naya took his face in her hands, her touch infinitely gentle. Then we'll have had this night. This perfect night where we learned we could still love. That will be enough to sustain me. Not for me, Ember declared, pressing close to his other side. If they separate us, I'll find a way back to you. I'll stow away on a supply ship, learn to pilot a shuttle, swim through space if I have to. Her dramatic pronouncement was undermined by tears streaking her cheeks. Celestria wrapped her arms around them all. We won't be separated. I've seen farther than tonight. Fragments, possibilities. This bond is meant to grow, not end. Trust my visions. They stood together as dawn fully broke, 4 figures silhouetted against the rising light, holding on to each other and the fragile hope they'd built. The walk back to the palace felt both too long and too short. With each step, Marcus memorized details. The way morning light caught in Ember's hair, the quiet strength in Naya's stride, and the peaceful certainty in Celestria's expression. Whatever happened in the council chamber, he would carry these images forever. At the palace entrance, they encountered the first obstacle. Naya's advisor, an elder named Korvax, whose silver skin had dulled to near gray. His eyes widened at the sight of their bonding marks. "Princess Naya," he said, voice sharp with shock. "What have you done?" "What was necessary," Naya replied calmly. "Summon the council. We have much to discuss." The council chamber was a vast, circular space, open to the sky. 30 elders sat in concentric rings, their ancient faces carved with centuries of carefully controlled emotion. When Naya led Marcus to the center, their collective gasp echoed off the crystal walls. "Honored council," Naya began, her voice clear and unwavering. "I present Marcus Chen of Earth, who has helped us rediscover what we have lost." She explained everything: the bonding ritual, the awakening of their emotional centers, the possibility of renewal. Ember spoke passionately about the intensity of feeling,
how Marcus had shown them what it meant to truly live. Celestria presented her journal, the patterns she recorded, evidence of genuine connection. The council listened in stony silence. When the daughters finished, the silence stretched, oppressive, and condemning. Finally, the eldest counselor spoke, her voice like wind over ancient stones. "You have violated every protocol, exposed our people's vulnerability to an outsider, formed bonds that cannot be sustained." Marcus's heart sank, but Naya stepped forward. "Yes, and in doing so, we've proven that we can still feel, can still connect. Look at my markings, Elder Seraphine. When did you last see them burn this bright?" The elder's expression flickered, the first crack in her facade. "What you call violation, we call survival," Ember added. "We're the last generation born with the potential for bonding. If we fade, everything fades. At least we tried." "And we succeeded," Celestria finished, standing to join Naya. "The memory tree acknowledged us. It hasn't done that in 70 years. Seraphine stood slowly, descending from her seat. She approached Marcus, studying the marks on his skin with unreadable eyes. Then, to everyone's shock, she placed her hand over his heart. Her own markings, so dim Marcus had barely noticed them, suddenly flared. Faint, but unmistakable. She gasped, pulling back her hand as if burned. "I felt it," she whispered, wonder breaking through centuries of control. "For just a moment, I felt—" She looked up at the other counselors. "They're telling the truth. The spark still exists within us. We've just forgotten how to kindle it." Murmurs rippled through the council. Marcus felt hope rising, warm and cautious in his chest, and through the bond, he felt the daughters' hearts leap in unison with his own. "We propose an alliance," Naya said quickly, seizing the moment. "A true exchange program. Humans come here to learn about longevity, advanced technology, emotional discipline. We send volunteers to Earth to relearn passion, connection, the art of living intensely within a limited time." "And Marcus?" Seraphine asked, her eyes sharp. "What becomes of your bond with him?" "We maintain it," Naya said simply. "He returns to Earth to advocate for the program, but comes back regularly. We learn to sustain connection across distance, prove that love doesn't require constant proximity." "It will be difficult," Seraphine acknowledged. "Painful even.